I dropped a whole 147-page contract document in.
The Applied AI Podcast, where tech meets ROI.
Mind blown.
Welcome to episode 7 of the Applied AI Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Andra. Today's episode covers important issues of data privacy and security, AI deployment, and other enterprise issues. Enjoy. I'm here with Scott of i4Ops. Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to.
Yeah, my name is Scott Peiffer. I've been doing the data storage and data technology thing for about 35 years, and near and dear to my heart is AI. It's taking care of data, and I work for i4Ops. We are a data security, AI security company, and our mantra is we keep the data in. So that's what we're going to talk about.
That's great. And we'll get into data security and what you guys are doing, the good work you're doing in a little bit. I wanted to talk to you about something that is near and dear to both of our hearts, which is this idea that right now AI is a bit of a FOMO thing. A lot of companies feel desperate that they need to be doing AI because it's the hot thing. They don't want to miss out, but they don't really need to know. They don't really know what they should be doing. And a lot of them maybe aren't going about it in the most intelligent or systematic or cohesive way. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've read a lot of reports where companies are getting mandates from the C-suite. Go do AI. Well, everybody's got some level of AI going on anyway. There's shadow AI. I'm using Perplexity. I'm using ChatGPT or Gemini. But this mandate to go fix things, go use AI to fix things, it's being driven by this, like you said, FOMO, where people are like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I just shake my head. They're spending $200,000, $300,000 trying to set up something without a clear objective of what's going to happen. And so the expectation is that they're going to find great value, but 90% of these models don't turn up huge value because the research we've done is they hold back. They take, I'm going to only share just a little bit of my information to train that model and think it's good enough because I really don't want to disclose my really important secret stuff, my employee information, my sales data, my conversations on chats with customers and support. So they hold back and they're just not getting a value from that project.
Absolutely. I think that's true. And with Talbot West, when we consult clients in true digital transformation, which I think, as an aside, I think that's a big part of the conversation here, is that for an AI strategy to really get traction and create results, it needs to be based in a broader digital transformation discussion. And so they're just running to kind of sometimes put lipstick on a pig, as they say, without really looking at the underlying digital transformation that needs to take place at a deeper level in the company. But we always say, when we're engaging with a client, start with an end vision of where you're trying to get to or why you're doing this. And that could be some vision of a future state that's fairly clearly articulated, where things are much more efficient than they are now. It could be that they want to prepare the company for sale and get a higher exit by demonstrating certain level of technological efficiency and sophistication to a buyer. Whatever that is, they need to clearly define that. Then clearly define where they currently are. That involves a mapping of their systems and processes, and then sort of look at the delta between the two and what is a natural progression, a stepwise progression that's not going to break the bank, not going to kill them, where they can roll this out in an incremental way. And to me, that's super fundamental, because otherwise you're just running to bolt some new gadget, some shiny new gadget onto maybe a foundation that's not very well thought out to begin with, because a lot of these businesses, they grow in a very sort of haphazard way, and nobody ever takes the time to put these pieces together the way they should. And so a more fundamental reimagining or envisioning of how things could be, I think, is important here.
Yeah, I think you touched a point that's important here. Let's highlight this. It's when you train a model, when you do the diligence, you want to train it to speak your language, your business. You can ask questions, but one word may mean something different to your business aspect than to somebody else's. So having a locally trained model, a model that's trained on your information, and maybe we can get into RAG and stuff later, but where you're augmenting the data constantly, so it's always fresh and it's about your business. That's when you're starting to gain value from what you're doing. You have the ability to throw all of your information in, train, model, and keep it local so that when, I use the term Dexter, the new kid on the block is going to say, I'm going to impress the boss and I'm going to ask ChatGPT some questions. They have a generic answer. But when you ask a local model that's been trained appropriately, you have a specific answer that's relevant to your business and your customers and your environment. You're going to get such a better return on investment.
Absolutely. And what you're talking about there is, really organizational knowledge management, which is so fundamental. I think in the future, it's going to be table stakes that every organization that wants to be competitive has a in-house fine-tuned RAG system, probably neurosymbolic, meaning it's anchored in some kind of an ontology, knowledge graph, or what have you, basis of truth for that company, but also fine-tuned, given access to the company's knowledge repository, and able to just give answers to anyone in the company that needs them. Of course, there will be the appropriate permissions in place based on, user roles and access and all of that. But really, this free flow of information that is very, very specific to that company. It's not generic, and that requires a much deeper rethinking than just doing AI or going and like signing up for an AI tool. I mean, you have to actually look at what is the state of your knowledge repository. Do we have things well documented? Well documented for most companies, the answer is no. And so there's a whole cascading, lot of dependencies, precursors, and all of that have to be addressed. And again, this gets more to the true digital transformation rather than just, hey, let's do AI.
I just finished a conversation with a gentleman who's working with the government in Canada, and he used a great analogy. He told a quick story, and if you don't mind, he's got divers that work and they do debug bombs, okay, mines, water mines, and they do it underwater. And one of the guys in a certain country was doing this, defusing a bomb, and they got the bomb done, but the detonator detonated and he lost some fingers. Well, a couple days later, another person was doing the same thing. It was only 2 days later, but that information couldn't flow through. So he also lost fingers. They correctly, did the bomb, but they didn't get the detonator. So when you're talking about company and you're losing your fingers, you want to have the most current, fresh information possible. There are a lot of companies out there, very large companies have a policy, no AI. You cannot use generic AI. And there's a good reason for that. But as you said, if a company has the ability to look holistically, they create a model that says everybody inside of corporation ABC now have questions and answers, and it's constantly learning. That is a 100% freshness in the learning model, the corporate use case, and it's secure because it's your model, your language, your employees, and you just kind of, yes, you have to put security around it, but that model is the future. Companies will train, augment, and stay fresh on all the information, and nobody loses their fingers.
Percent. I'm glad you told that story. One of our clients, which I'll keep anonymous, but had a similar situation. There were no fingers involved, but it was a case of there was some well-known information that wasn't passed to the right people. The right people didn't have access to it. And so it was regarding a vendor with some known quality control issues that needed a higher level of scrutiny on their deliverables than normal vendor scrutiny that the company did. But the fact that this particular vendor had been escalated to a higher scrutiny level wasn't passed on to the right people. And so they signed off on some stuff that ended up creating a huge liability for the company. Had they just known this one fact, hey, this vendor needs to be scrutinized at, code red instead of, code green or whatever,
Absolutely.
normal pass off, right? They would have caught this stuff and that risk wouldn't have been passed on to the company. So it is just a case of the right people having the right information at the right time. It's that level of visibility, just like you're saying with the divers.
It could be lose a couple fingers, something very physical, or it could be a stock price hit. If you do something that is not augmented specifically or dialed in specifically to your business, you make a choice that can have a material impact on your company value or a customer or, a scenario where it's not an easy recovery, if at all.
Absolutely. You have a pretty impressive background in technology and data stuff. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from, because I think that plays into this conversation.
Yeah, I got to learn technology from Intel Corporation. This go way back, like 30 some years ago, before it was it is what it is today. It was a technology expertise training grounds, and I got the opportunity to work with some of the best and the brightest. And we started a company, an internal division on storage. Now, if you think about computes and Intel, everything's chips and stuff, but a chip has to have the right I/O. It has to have the right storage. And so my job for 15 years was to really drive the data value of things. So this is back in the days when everything was about faster, faster, faster. Well, you fast forward to my next role, and I worked at NetApp, data management. I got the opportunity to run ONTAP, which is a very complex management of data. And this is security, operations, DevOps, SAN, NAS, object, file block object, all the different pieces of remote replication and business continuity. And all those things, again, come back to the data. What is our job is to protect the data. Data has value. So you fast forward again, and at i4Ops, as operations and product, everything's about data. So when Talbot West goes and does a digital transformation, your goal is to create value from that data, right? You want to help a company take what they have securely and create value. So you can't just lock it away in a safe. It sounds good. It's super secure, but you got to use it. And so for most of my career, I've been in the opportunity of how do I take data? How do I use it to create value? So where we are today, we're really talking about securing AI. So we talked about the market of AI, how it's growing and everybody needs to use it. I do talk a lot about securing it such that anybody that's using it can do it in a secure environment, meaning data doesn't escape. It's not ingested by a third party. It doesn't allow some nefarious person to, steal your data, because that happens on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I want to get in a minute to the specific mechanics of how you're doing that for your clients, because that is very important. But I want to put a finer point on this, the importance of data and how useful it is. Like I've been saying that data is the new oil. It's so valuable in the age of AI, getting even more so. So anytime you have a proprietary data set, you want to be using that. I mean, if it's just tucked away somewhere, it's no use, right? You're not actually realizing the value of it. Just like oil under the ground, right? It's not actually driving any value. And so, or another analogy I sometimes use too is the data has to be sort of cleaned up, and often you have to extract the insights from it, almost like refining ore. So, if you have ore in the ground, it's not as valuable. It might be like a very low percentage of valuable minerals in it, but once you refine it and pull those minerals out and you concentrate them, right, then you have something much more useful. So a lot of times what we're doing is working with clients to even figure out how to extract value from a lot of messy data. So all of which is to say that absolutely the data needs to be used for it to be meaningful or valuable in any way. And to your point, in order to use it, you want to do that securely. And that's, I think, where you come in. So I'd love to hear, first of all, if you have any comments on that, and also what you guys are doing specifically to keep it secure.
Sure. So let's go back to the oil analogy. Oil's fantastic, right? It's a commodity. It's out there. When you refine it, you can put it in your gas tank and you can use it, right? You can do a lot of really fun things. Maybe it's playing in the water, or you're driving a car or a boat or whatever. You get value from it. Having that asset commodity available gives you privileges of doing something. So uh, when you start thinking about data in this perspective, data that's in a primary storage solution, so whether it's a NetApp and Dell EMC or Hitachi, it doesn't matter. It's typically encrypted. It's protected. It's really locked down that very few people have access to it. Then you have your shared information, and this is a real problem. It could be a SharePoint or whatever. There's studies that show that 50% of the companies in the US are sharing up to 1,000 files that have sensitive information on it. Not because they want to, because they just don't know better, and that those privileges, those credentials allow people to get into a SharePoint folder that has Scott's home address. Now, that's not, a big deal, but I personally don't want to put my address or my phone number or my social security number or my medical records on for every employee to get to. It could be things like more specific about customer responses. Salesperson might drop something on there that says, big customer corporation ABC decided to drop us because of a 2 points in, whatever. Those are things you just don't want out. So data shared, data that is shared needs to be protected and rights need to be given to it. Data that's in primary is encrypted. Data that's in backup is encrypted. Data that's in flight is encrypted. But when I can't grab information and I want to do a data science project, or I want to do some research, it's unencrypted because I need it to be unencrypted. People say, well, homomorphic encryption's there and I can open applications. Fantastic. Nobody can afford that. So let's talk reality. So I'm going to download an Excel file, and that Excel file is not encrypted when I'm using it. Well, if I have access to that Excel file, I can take it. I can copy it. I can maneuver it, manipulate it, push it, send it to a competitor or whatever by nefarious design or because I just made a mistake. So data in use is a huge vulnerability for every company. Now that might be me as Dexter, the new product person, grabbing a file and saying, hey, could you summarize that file for me? And now all that stuff that I just read that is not encrypted is now ingested in a public language model. So i4Ops comes in. We're like, hey, this is really important. We think AI drives value, drives business, but we want to make it so Dexter doesn't grab a file and take it out. We also know that there are tens of billions of passwords and usernames and credentials on the Russian marketplace, on the dark web. And for just a few $100, I can go get a whole lot of them for, say 20,000 of them for $150 or maybe $1,000. So credentials are no longer good enough to protect my data because at some point we're going to get hacked. If you don't believe me, just set up a Google alert that says data breaches, and you'll get a daily list of 6 to 20 breaches that probably have somebody that you've used. It's your hotel, your car rental, your bank, your favorite place to shop or buy movies. Your credentials are going to get hacked. Well, once they've hacked or they purchase these things, a hacker doesn't have to hack anymore. They just log in. They buy the credentials, they log in. And then what happens? They can steal your data. They can walk away because of credentials.
I mean,
And
I guess 2FA is designed to kind of protect against that, right?
It is, and it is fairly effective, but it's not fully effective. So 2 weeks ago, there was a company that got hacked, and they didn't steal data. They stole the multi-factor authentication tokens. So why did they take tokens? Because they had a whole bunch of credentials. So now they can go into a company that they had the credentials for and the tokens. MFA, they spoof it in and they can answer those tokens more quickly than you would notice it. Hey, did I just get something on my phone? Oh, ignore it, right? It's done so quickly that I don't have a chance to say that, no, that wasn't me. Because my phone always asks me that question. Was this you that logged in? So with those credentials and tokens, people can get in and start to take your data. And they're going to do the most logical thing. They're going to grab as much as they can, as quick as they can. Peace out, I'm out. And you may not know that they're ever there. But that information is now sold again back to the dark web, or it's used as a competitive disadvantage to you. And it may kill your stock price. It may take your customer list. It might do your sales price, right? There's stuff that is in there that just doesn't need to get out. So we stop it from getting out. Regardless of what your credentials are, Jacob, when you log in, we're going to let you do what you need to do, but we're going to stop you from getting data out. So that's the whole purpose of i4Ops is we want to make sure that AI happens, a data science project or your customer billing happens where you have an oversight that data doesn't get out. Only based on what we want to let go in or out.
Yeah. So talk more about how that works and how you guys are able to do that.
Sure. So we'll keep this at a very high level, basic functionality. So everything in a computer is an input or an output. Okay. So when I put data in, it's an input. When I want to take it out, it's an output. Each one of those IOs, input outputs, goes through a certain structure in the operating system. We simply do this. It's a patented approach, but we simply get in the way of writes. So if you want to write something and it says, I want to write customer file to this location, and it's inside of our environment, you write customer file from volume A to volume B. Perfectly normal for a data science project or for a copy. I want to write it to a temp file so I can put it on my thumb drive. We are going to say that is a write. It is not allowed to go outside of this box that we create. Okay. Now you cannot take anything out of that box unless it's written on a whitelist. That whitelist says you can only move it to this directory, this volume, or this location. So it's very prescriptive.
Clarification question there. So is
Yes.
the box roughly corresponding to an organization and their parameters they set?
We'll call a box a virtual machine. So you
Okay.
can make a virtual machine as large as you want. It can run an Oracle database, a vector database. It can run billing software, HR software. It could be data science, PyTorch, Python scripted based XYZs. So you can do anything you want inside of a virtual machine, just like a server. And that's the box. Those are the boundaries. So you log in, you can do your thing, we can share things. But to get it out of that box, it has to be on a list. And only a program manager, a data owner, will put yeses and nos on that list. Now, just to sharpen that point again, data loss prevention, endpoint detection and response typically plugs as many holes as they know, and you have to update that constantly. We start with a de facto of no holes. It doesn't leave, period, unless it's on that list, which is a couple of yeses. Okay, so it's the other side. People do penetration testing. That's how people get in. We're going to assume that those companies do their thing. We are going to take the opposite, which is exfiltration testing. Exfiltration means simply unwanted egress of data. Okay, so we're going to make it so that you can't take the data out unless it's on that little whitelist.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so really that's applicable, broadly applicable, not just for AI applications. So really anything company-wide, but you're focusing especially on AI applications because it seems like there's just a larger risk profile associated with them. And so let's take the example of a large language model that a company wants to deploy. Just like we were talking about, it's trained on their data. It's theirs, but it's connected to a cloud. It's let's say a private cloud instance, relatively secure. Does the cloud instance live inside this virtual machine also?
So you
How
can
that's set up?
Great. You can deploy it either way. So typically a large language model, you can have the data sitting outside. You can use pointers so that I'm going to use that database as my information for this AI model. Trying to stay simple here. And I've got pointers to it. It's living in the cloud, it's doing that thing. But me, when I access it, I have to access it through the virtual machine. And the virtual machine will vet that, yes, I am Scott and I'm the person that should be coming in. That's my multi-factor authentication, identity access management. So I have credentials. But when I want to ask a question of that model and say, I did this today for one of my demos, who am I? I was talking to a local language model and said, are you a human? Whatever. I started asking those questions. Nothing leaves the environment. Everything stays in. And if I ask it the question such as, explain this file or tell me about, a normal language model will go off and look at the repository of data somewhere outside of this VM. We have it such that none of that data gets out, only the inputs come in, and then the answer and so forth. So it's pretty simple. We prefer to run the large language model inside the VM. We don't have to bring all of the data in because we can use a thing called ETL with Linux. You just pull the data in, at least pointers to the data, so it stays on primary. And we get the opportunity to run the models, keep them secure, nothing goes out, and we protect your investments.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to envision that. So the large language models running inside the virtual machine. The cloud instance in this case is outside the machine, although as you point out, you could bring that inside as well if you wanted to. I assume there would be some additional cost associated with that. So probably the most logical thing is to run the cloud instance outside. And then your solution essentially is a gating function as data passes in and out of this box. It is sort of gating it and verifying that it has the right permissions associated with it.
Correct. And we don't do it by a file name or by your credentials because you may not be who you say you are.
Yeah.
Deep fakes are too good. So we do it by capacity, or it can be by instance. It doesn't matter. But the reality is, if you're running a model, you've done 10 billion parameters and you've trained and you've done whatever, it's a million parameters, it doesn't matter. You're running a model, it's not really that much capacity. And depending on the needs, you might need GPUs, you might use, because we have GPU support, you might be running something very complex and you have a powerful situation. The recent models that I've read have about 3/4 of the companies are using local data science or data models because cloud is cloud. Everybody knows that there's risk with the cloud with security. And it's not that you don't trust it, but when you're talking about sensitive information, you want to be hypersensitive. So you put the wrapper around the model locally and you run it in a private data center. Super easy. We can deploy in about an hour, hour and a half. We don't get into the reads and writes of everybody in the corporation, but we do it based on the areas that are most important. So you want it, your HR, your sales, your models, your IP. I have a consulting business and all my information is on protected this way. So my clients' information is secure.
That's awesome. And we've talked about doing some work together. I think we're going to bring you in on some projects we're working on because I think some of our clients are going to be a great fit for this. So I'm excited to work together in more detail on some of these solutions.
So Jacob, let me throw a little bone out there. When you're talking, this isn't a Talbot West, but if you're going to do an AI project, go find a Talbot West, specifically somebody like that, or you, that is going to help you train the model locally. Tune it for your company, tune it to your vernacular, your language, and do that and secure it in a way that the overhead's small, secure it in a way that allows that data to be used securely. Nobody's going to nefariously take it out. Nobody's going to, oops, I shouldn't have done that. You're not going to have, messy situation where I have 14 copies of the same data. All right. It's in an environment. It's going to be clean. It's going to be protected, and you will have fresh data. So trying to do this on your own, yeah, you can do this. You can put parameters in place to say, oh, I'm going to plug the holes. I'm going to have policy. But people don't follow policy. They just don't. Half the companies have people using, agentic AI, or they're using models out there that are just not approved by the company. And that just is data leak every single time.
Totally agree. One more question to throw at you. Where do you see AI technologies driving the most value in companies from what you've seen in your own experience?
Well, most of the conversations I hear is it's taking care of things like customer support because I don't have people tied up answering very simple questions. So the repetitive things. But the real big value that I see that nobody talks about is when you start to look at sales churn. It's a data science project. You can call it data science for AI, but it's AI. I'm going to train my information, ask it questions. I don't want to do that in a way that allows my information to go out. So having an internal model that is completely safe and understanding my sales churn or answering questions. We did this in our company. We had a code thing that we just couldn't figure out. So we trained a model just on our kernel code. It was very specific. We asked it 2 questions. We had an answer and we fixed it, right? It was a problem we struggled with for weeks. but we trained it. We no way, no how are we giving our IP out to Perplexity to say, hey, how do you do this little thing here? No. So it took us a couple of hours to find the right data, throw it in, train a model, and then we asked it 2 questions. Duh, that's the answer. That can happen everywhere. And that's where I see AI becoming the biggest value. You know your company, you know your business, it's trained well, you can ask it questions, not just saving the junior person on the check line, but creating real company value.
I think that's such a good point, because so often people think of it as, sort of saving time or cutting costs or, needing fewer people, but it can actually create capabilities that wouldn't have even been possible without AI. So yes, it's all of the above, but I think this capability enhancement piece is a welcome addition to a lot of the what seems like a lot of hand wringing about AI is going to take all the jobs. It's actually going to create some new capabilities as well that don't even exist today, and do some really cool things. And not to minimize some of these social concerns about displacement and all that, because those are real in any technological wave. All the waves of technological innovation that have come along since who knows when have brought that with them, and it's real. It's worth talking about. But there's the bright side as well, which you highlighted.
As companies, wade into the pool of AI and the new digital transformations, you have to go in boldly, but have a plan. Don't just throw your stuff out for the cheapest, lowest cost plan. Yes, you can train a llama. Yes, you can do different ways to get there, but have a plan. Buy a good consulting company to train your data locally. Let it speak your language, and don't forget to secure it. And then throw everything at it. Don't hold back on your information. The more information a model has, the better it's going to be at giving you value. So throw your data at it, give value, and go bold.
I like that. Go boldly and have a plan. There's the tagline of the day. Thanks for joining, Scott.
Hey, it was a pleasure. Best of luck in your growth.